after spending $250, $40 each for 3 classes, and what else did I spend money on? And $54 for the road test, because every time you have to take the G2 test, you have to pay another $54. Hey guys, you're welcome to my YouTube channel. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for joining. Please consider subscribing down below and be sure to turn the post notification bell on as well. My name is Biz Queen and I'll be sharing with you guys lifestyle in Canada, how to migrate to Canada, and other fun stuff. If you're a returning subscriber, you know the vibes. Please give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to leave a comment down below and don't hesitate to share with your friends as well. So going by today's title, as you can see, so this video is about how I spent almost $2,000 in getting an Ontario temporary driver's license, also known as G2 license. Just so you know, I took the test about 4 times, not even about 4 times. I only passed the test on the 4th attempt, which means I had wasted a bunch of money on several road tests before I was able to pass the 4th time. Before I proceed, I know how a bunch of people, or not everyone, has the balls to come sit in front of a camera to share how they made a mistake. Not everyone wants to tell the world the mistakes they made, and a bunch of people out there, most people would not admit when they make a mistake. But my philosophy about life is, if you make a mistake, sometimes in life we make mistakes, we win some and we lose some. So when you make those mistakes, share them with people, help them correct the mistakes that you made and make a better decision next time. I'll tell you the story. So in Ontario, we have a graduating driver's license system, which means you would have to take different tests. The first test is the G1 test, which contains the knowledge and the road signs. And after a year, you would be eligible to take the G2 test, which is the temporary driver's license. Then the final G test is the highway test. You'd be required to go for the road test on the highway, and once you get that test, then that means you have a full or a permanent Ontario driver's license. I don't know how it is in other provinces. It's definitely different from here. And if you're coming from a country that you have previous driving experience, you can get a letter from your maybe driving authority in your country, and you can present that here. Then they can waive off some wait time for you. You can waive the 1-year wait time for you to get the G2 test. And if you also have like 2 years of driving experience from your country, you can waive the 2 years of wait time for you to take the full G test. So say for instance you have 1 or 2 years of driving experience from Nigeria, and you're able to get the letter from FRSC and present it to the drive test center here, they can waive off the 1-year wait time. For me, I had over 1 year of driving experience, which was not up to 2 years, so I had to take the G2 road test. Then after taking the G1 knowledge and road sign test, the first thing is, on the first test I had, for you to be able to prepare for that test, there is like there is an app on the App Store and Google Play Store. It's called the G1 road test and knowledge test. This app would help you practice for your test, and you can ace the test if you practice well from that app. So I learned about that app and I downloaded it on my mobile device. I practiced, then I went for my G1 test, of course. So after taking the knowledge and the road sign test, I was able to ace the knowledge test in one sitting. The road sign, when I started the test, I first of all missed 3 questions. Like it's a total of 16 questions, and of the first 3 questions, I had failed them. So you can only fail maybe just 3, because you have to get about 70 or 80% of the pass mark. Then I had already failed 3 questions from the onset, so I started to panic, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? I already failed. Then I started clicking on rubbish and everything. I gave up and I failed the road sign test. So I had to go pay another $16 to take the test again. So meanwhile, for me to be able to register for the test, I had already paid 130 something to originally register for the test and the G2 test. So I had to go pay another $16, and I went for the test the second time, for the road sign test, and I did it instantly and I passed the second time. So that is me spending over $150. That's the starting. So the second money I spent was when I went online and I went to call a random driving instructor that I wanted to take my G2 test. Because if you have driving experience from a country that is not Canada or the United States or maybe the UK, even if you are coming from any country, I still think you would have to like take some practice or some driving lessons here so you can understand the routes and decide or learn how to actually drive in Canada. So I called a random driving instructor to give me some classes and I took the test. So my first mistake in that instance was calling a random driving instructor. Then second mistake was that I had booked the test location before even contacting any driving instructor. I should have gotten advice from people on which city would have been the best for me to take the road test. So I had already registered for it, and the driving instructor, instead of him to have told me that that location is not really recommended, or maybe him telling me you can still change your test date and booking a different location. So I went ahead after 2 weeks. Like, I had just 2 weeks to practice after I'd booked the road test date, and I had to practice and go for the test. So now the driving instructor charged me $250 to go all the way to Hamilton. Then he also charged me about $40 per class, and I took about 3 or 4 classes. And before the test, this guy definitely knew that I wasn't ready for the test, but because I already had the test date and I had booked it, and I was pressuring him that I wanted to go ahead and take the test, he just let me go take the test. So my mistake then, why I failed that test, was because I missed a stop sign. I'll put a sample of a stop sign here. Where I come from, we don't use stop sign, we only use traffic sign. So the stop sign, I don't know how that happened, but I just didn't see it. Even in my classes, I've been taught that when you see a stop sign, you have to wait for 3 seconds, look all around before you go. I missed the stop sign. So that was one of the reasons why. And missing a stop sign is very, very crucial. So when you're doing your road test and you miss the stop sign, that's like you have automatically failed the test. So that was how I failed my first test. After failing this test, I called the guy. I sent him some money. That was another $54 for him to book me another test date. Then the second time, he booked me a test location in Mississauga, which was not so bad. I did another 2 or 3 classes practice with him, and I went for my test. That was about two weeks interval, because you have to wait for 10 days before you can go for the other test. Now another mistake I made was that it was already snowing. I took my first test in November and the other test in December, and it was already snowing out there. One thing that I know was a mistake on my part was because I put pressure on myself to get the license as quickly as possible, because I wanted to get a car for myself before my birthday, which was in December. The second time again, after spending, remember I spent $250 for the first test, and I spent $40 per class, and I did 3 or 4 classes. That was the first test. The second test, the guy agreed to collect $150 from me, and that was to Mississauga, because Mississauga is not as far as Hamilton. Then I also did 3 classes or 2 classes, and that was $40 each. You can sum that up and see what that is right now. Then I took the second test. Lo and behold, when I was to do my parallel parking, if you don't know what parallel parking is when a car is on the road or on the street and they ask you to like park behind the car. That was it. So when I did the parallel parking and I came back, then I hit the curb, and if you hit the curb, you automatically fail the test again. So I failed the test again the second attempt. And another thing is, the guy said I wasn't doing my blind spot check. So when you're driving, you are expected that before you do a lane change, and after you're doing your signal and you do check your mirrors, you're expected to do your blind spot check. Doing your blind spot check is you looking back. Like, while you're driving, you're looking back just to see that it's safe for you to switch to the other lane. And while you're doing your blind spot check, you're expected to not only turn your eyes, you're expected to like move your neck and your shoulders. So your neck and your shoulder has to move. So the guy said I did not do my blind spot check one time. So I failed the test again, the second attempt, after spending another almost $300 the second attempt. You can sum that up and see where that is right now. So after failing the test on 2 occasions, I gave up that, okay, so it means I'll probably not be able to get this license before my birthday, and it's already snowing so bad outside, so I'll probably not be able to pass. Then I decided to wait until the summer before I take the test again. Cool. I moved out of Brampton and I moved to North York, and I met a couple of friends, and they told me, oh, why would you even go and take your drive test with, or driving classes with, a random instructor on the internet? Then it occurred to me that that's true. If you are from maybe India, I would recommend that you take your driving classes with an Indian instructor. Not because you're being biased or something, it's because those people have experience from your country, and they know that, oh, in India you do your right hand driving, and they can see some of those mistakes that you'll be making and can correct you quickly. So driving, if you are also maybe Nigerian or you are from maybe African countries where we do left-hand driving, but we drive like very rough or rash people, if you use a Nigerian driving instructor, then they can easily see or spot some of the mistakes that you're more likely to make when you're driving and quickly correct you on it. So that's another mistake I observed that I made, using a driving instructor that is not from my country or from my background, or that has knowledge of how people drive. It doesn't really matter. Anybody can use any driving instructor, just so you know, and they will still pass. But what I'm saying is, it's usually recommended or best for you to use someone that has driving experience from your country or from your region. That way they can spot some of the mistakes that you are likely to make and correct you as quickly as possible. So I went for the third road test after coronavirus, and you can't go for, like, all the test dates were cancelled, and my original test date was for March, and the test got cancelled because, you know, everywhere was locked down. So I had to take the test again in by the end of August. I took the road test hoping that I was going to pass. Like, this time around I went to Lindsay. Lindsay is about an hour and a half drive from Toronto, and I used a Nigerian driving instructor, so everything was all set. I spent another $250 to go to Lindsay, and also I took about 3 classes with the guy. I took about 3 classes with the guy, and it charged also $40 per class. Mind you, $40 per class is 1 hour class, and like after that 1 hour, that's it. So the guy trained me. We went to the location. Everything was all set. So I knew for a fact that, oh no, I'd promised myself that this is definitely the last time I'm going to pass this test once and for all, and that's it. Guess what? I went all the way to Lindsay and I still failed the test. Like, at this point in time, I was so frustrated. I was already in tears. The second time I took the test, I actually cried a lot. I have a video of it because I was looking at myself like, wow, look at you crying here. I made a video of it. I'll probably insert it here if I'm not too shy to do that. So the third time I went for the test, and I could not do my parallel parking. Mind you, 2 days before my road test, my friend had her own driving test, and I taught her how to do the parallel parking. The parallel parking is the same one I described, that when you go here, you park behind the car. Then I went for the test the third time, and I couldn't do the parallel parking. Like, this is something I taught someone, but I was really, really panicking. Like, oh my gosh, this is my last time. I can't fail. I can't F up and everything. And I couldn't do the parallel parking. Like, I was stuck. Lindsay is one of the easiest places you can pass your drive test in GTA. The driving was perfectly fine, but if you don't do the parallel parking, is as good as you not meeting the industry standard or the ministry standard for you to be able to qualify to get the G2 test. So because of me not being able to do the parallel parking, then I couldn't get the license the third time, after spending $250, $40 each for 3 classes, and what else did I spend money on? And $54 for the road test, because every time you have to take the G2 test, you have to pay another $54. So sum that up and see where we are at right now. So the 4th test that I took, which was the final test, thankfully, I also registered in Lindsay because I realized Lindsay is actually very, very chill, and it's probably the best place for you to pass your drive test if you are in Ontario or you are within the GTA region. So I took the road test again. That was after about 10 days. I registered for another test. I took 2 classes with a new instructor at this time, and the reason I used the new instructor was because he had available dates. I could have still stuck with the second guy I used, but I used the new instructor. It was also a Nigerian. No, he was a Ghanaian actually. He was able to get me a date, but at this point in time, I knew that was it. Like, if I don't pass this test this time, I'm going to give up on driving. Maybe I'm a bad driver after all, or maybe I'll just continue to take the bus and forget about getting a car. So I went for the 4th drive test, and it was in Lindsay. After 10 days of the other test, I went there, spent another $250, spent $40 on 1 class because I had to take 1 class with the new guy, and what else? So that was it. That was the final attempt that I was able to pass this test. At this point in time, I made some correction. After seeing the mistakes I've made in the past, I was able to make some changes as to my driving and learn some tips that could make me pass. So today now I'll be sharing with you some of those tips that helped me eventually after 4 attempts ace my drive test. Practice was definitely the first. I had taken the test multiple times, so I had known those mistakes that I made each of those times not to make them again. So practice, very important. Second tip here is, if you have experience driving from maybe Nigeria, look for a Nigerian driving instructor if you can. If you have experience driving from India, look for an Indian driving instructor if you can. The reason for this is because those people have knowledge on how you drive back home, and they can easily train you or help you adapt to the new way to drive in Canada. If it's not mandatory, I'm not necessarily saying if you use people of other backgrounds that you will not be able to pass. That's not what I mean. But if you can find people from your background, it will definitely help make the process easier and transitioning easier for you to be able to drive in Canada. The third tip I'll be sharing here, which is very important, is go on your provincial website for driving. I think in Toronto, in Ontario, it's drivetest.ca or something. You can go on that website and see the ministry requirements for you to be able to qualify for the G2 or the G test or the road test. I didn't do this the first, second and third time, but the fourth time I went there because I never expected that parallel parking was a ministerial requirement for you to get the license, because every other thing was right. But when I went on the website, I saw that there are some things you definitely have to do. Your blind spot check, not missing a stop sign, observing traffic sign, not running against like the red light, doing the parallel parking, maybe reverse parking. If you do parallel parking, they would definitely not have to do the reverse parking. Then maybe front parking you would have to do, but you have to do downhill park, uphill park, reverse or parallel parking, then front parking. So I was able to go on the ministry website to see the requirement as to what I need to do to be able to qualify for the license. So I would also recommend for you to do the same thing, so you know what your I don't know what I'll call it, you know what your cutoff mark should be, then you can work towards it. That's the third tips I have for you. Then another tip is for you to go online to research the location or the city with the best or higher passing rate. That way you don't just continue to make try and error to choose different locations. It was after I read about Lindsay and I got recommendations from a bunch of other people, then I knew that was actually where to go. Another very important tip, I don't know, am I on the fourth one or the fifth one now, is to not panic. So when I was doing my parallel parking the third time, I was already starting to panic when she asked me, do it the first time I missed it, do it the second time I missed it. So I was already panicking, like, oh my gosh, that's the end, like I'm not going to pass, blah blah blah. But because I was already panicking, it would definitely affect your driving. Also, the second time when I hit the curb, I could have stayed more carefully and still drove. Maybe you would have pardoned me. I don't think you, like, if you hit the curb, it's automatic fail even from the website. So I had already panicked when I saw that I couldn't do it anymore. So just take your time, relax. It's not a do or die affair. It's something you can easily pass in one sitting or in one attempt. So don't panic. The final tip I have here is, if you are coming to Canada, try to get a letter from the driving authority in your country. That would help you waive some of the wait time and go for the test ASAP. Also, if you can get an insurance reference letter from your country, it depends on the insurance company. Some would be accepted here, some may not. So the insurance letter would help you say that you've had insurance in the past for your car in your country and you probably never had any claim. That way your insurance cost in Canada might be reduced by a certain extent. So try to see if you can also get that as well. Final. I've said this before, but just ensure you practice. So that's pretty much it. The reason I couldn't practice that much was because I had to be paying $40 every time I wanted to practice. I didn't have any friend that had car, or my friend that had car, I couldn't like use the car. So if you have access to any of your friend that has a car and they have maybe full license, they can definitely practice with you, and you don't have to continue to spend $40 in getting your practice with a driving instructor. So practice as much as you can and take your test once. You definitely can pass it once. So this is me telling you that I spent, if you do the math of everything I've said, definitely it's up to $2,000. So see how I spent almost $2,000 in getting an Ontario temporary driver's license. And the funny thing is, it's just a temporary license. So by 1 year time, which is next year, I'll still have to take the G test, which I hope that I'm able to pass once, because now I have a car, so I can practice and I don't have to like spend extra money to practice. So I hope I'll be able to share with you guys next year that I was able to pass my test once. So that's pretty much what I learned from my mistakes, and I hope you guys also learn from them. I wish you all the best if you have to take your drive test. If you are going to take your drive test in GTA region, I would definitely recommend Lindsay. When you go to Lindsay, it's very easy to pass there, even for your G test. That's pretty much it for this video, guys. If you enjoy watching, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you like this video, if you're yet to subscribe, please subscribe down below and be sure to turn the post notification bell on as well. I'll see you all in my next video. In the meantime, stay confident. Bye bye.